Welcome, everybody. We are back for another week, and I have a guest that I have known for a long time. Let's put it like that. But I've never really dove in terms of like business and leadership and her thoughts and ideas. But today I get to dive in, and you get to listen. So Stephanie Whalen, president of Ullico, has been gracious enough to join us here. And Stephanie, thanks for joining.
Thanks, Dave. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited about this. This has been the highlight of my day. I've been waiting for this all day.
Look, I'm just happy technical worked. Okay. I mean, the fact that we got it working, hey, that's, I'm always one to try and figure out the camera at the last minute, but we got it working. So
all good.
Let's dive in, right? So like I said, coming in, hey, here's where we want to go. And, for everybody listening, I don't talk sales a lot, even though Stephanie and I are going to get into it. You're president of the company of a product line, but you're in the senior management. You go to the website, your picture's right there, right? You've been there 25 years. So let's kind of go a little bit, further back.
Okay.
Strong leadership role, and you played sports in high school and college, and field hockey was it. So
I had field hockey, softball, and basketball.
That's right. You are a bowler. I forgot. My bad. But you coached field hockey, right?
I did coach field hockey.
All right. So let's keep that as we'll keep that as our main one. But still, I didn't know after all these years. I did not know that. So when did you look at yourself as a leader? Like, when did that go, yeah, I'm a leader?
Yeah. I certainly wasn't back in high school. I can tell you that. I didn't, I did well sports wise, not so much academically. Sports was going to be my ticket to school. But I don't think I fancied myself as a leader then. I think I had some self-esteem issues, even though I was doing well in sports. And it really wasn't until I got to Ullico and I got my first promotion that I was like, maybe, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can, lead people and take the bull by the horns, if you will. So it was a little while coming.
So hang on, let's press this one for a second. You played sports in college too, right?
I did. I played field hockey and softball at Lycombe in college my freshman year.
Okay.
I blew out my knee my freshman year. And I was Lycoming was D3. So, there was kind of the wink, wink, nod, nod of, there's money there available to you. But as soon as I wasn't able to play a sport, and let's be quite honest, my grades weren't all that. I was partying a little bit too much. They didn't invite me back for my sophomore year. So I had to come home. So that college career of sports was over.
Really?
And that was a tough one, man.
That's an esteem thing, right? Like we'll check the ego a little bit on that one. All right.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now you're coming home, tail between the legs. All your friends are back off at college for their sophomore year. Yeah. You're stuck at home with your mom, who was not easy. She was tough, man. She was
right.
She charged me rent and half utilities when I was home, even though
half utilities is strong. That's a strong play. Rent, I would probably do rent. Half utilities, that's legit. I need to write that. I need to write that down for mine.
And that was before, the nicety of you charge your kids half the rent and then you give it to them in a nice little lump sum as they walk out the door. No, I never got that money back. That money was my penance for screwing up and coming home. And so I came home. I went to community college, kind of got my stuff together, worked a bunch of jobs because I had to pay for school. I had no other way. Single mom, shouldn't have a lot of cash. And just kind of, bootstrapping and said, I got to get it done. Like, part of it was I wanted to get the heck out of my house. Like, I wanted to get back to freedom, if you will. So it was, I've always just been a hard worker. I've always put the time in, but it was humbling. It was very humbling. And so part of that during that time is when I started coaching high school field hockey. And,
got it.
Look, those girls weren't that much younger than me when you think about it. I mean, I started coaching my junior year in college. I coached them for 3 years. And had a blast with it just because it was fun to see the light bulb go off with them when they would learn, a new move, or they would, have a good moment. And, that was just a lot of fun. I was able to kind of relive some of my sports days because I couldn't play competitively anymore.
Yeah. So you come out of school and go right to Ullico. Is that correct?
No. I came out of school and I worked a job at a concierge service. So I was actually, it's kind of like sales. I was sitting at a concierge desk, and I was, they would come to me and say, hey, I need to get a restaurant reservation, or hey, we need to order flowers. And I did that for probably 6 months and hated it. And not really my forte. And then I ended up going to a car dealership. I started working at a car dealership, and I was answering the phone there. And then they were like, hey, you've got a great personality. Why don't you, we're going to teach you aftermarket sales. And so I went into aftermarket sales and hated sales because I hated being told no. But and I was the gal who came up to you and sold the rust proofing and undercoating and the 6 CD
Very important.
Yeah.
It's very important. I'm going to buy that every time too, by the way. Like for some reason I always do. But I mean, so you did have a little bit of sales. You did have a little bit. Like people saw it in you, but then you go and you get a production assistant, like doing the marketing piece of the puzzle. And then you said though, hey, when you got your first promotion is when I kind of got that, hey, I can do this thing. Right? Is that when you started expressing your voice more, expressing your opinions more, kind of getting your feet under you a little bit as a career person, if you will, professional?
Well, you've known me a really long time, so I've got a voice.
Right. That's right.
I think that was the first time I had a voice at work. Yeah, that was key. One little stop that I didn't tell you about. So I was at a car dealership. I went to a commercial printer, and I was doing kind of the inside sales thing there. And that's how I then ended up at Ullico. I actually got fired from that job because I wasn't doing it well. I was the one screwing up on the job jacket because I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like it. And that was what led me to Ullico, because I was able to be a production assistant and I would get to buy the printing. So I was on the other side of the transaction. And so that felt comfortable to me. And then, from there, just at Ullico, I was the sole person who did that stuff. So it was me, it was my shop, and you have some success. And I was always one to hold my hand up and say, well, I'll try that, or I'll do this. And that really is what started to get the ball rolling for me there. And, like I said, my first promotion, I'm like, you know what? I think I could do this. I could stay here the long term. It wasn't supposed to be a long-term job. I mean, I've told my CEO many times when we've had chats, I was only going to be here 18 months to 3 years. I had no aspirations at that point in time to be here, be a lifer, if you will, be here 25 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's just, I mean, I have about 4 things written down, but I don't care right now off of that. So why have you stayed? Like, I mean, so you hit 3 years, you get your legs under you, your voice that I known you for comes out at work, and I'm going to try things. You're going to raise your hand. Okay, great. But I was a recruiter, right? You have X experience. You're right there in DC. You have all this piece. You have people come to you over the years of various points. Why stay?
I kept getting opportunities. I kept getting new challenges, and they invested in me. I got to hold my hand up and say, hey, I want to take this course, or hey, I want to, the joke, believe it or not, there was a joke at one point that I was the company pooper scooper. And I know it sounds crazy, but it was because I was the one who would always pick up the crap and I would try to fix it. And it was problem solving, and I loved problem solving. I liked taking things apart and putting it back together, which is, what I was doing when I was dismantling an agency, an insurance agency, or shutting down a business line. And then, ultimately I kind of got my big break when I got promoted to AVP, assistant vice president. And I had to put a new system in because we had a dying platform that was currently being run on spreadsheets. And it was like do or die. Like you just got to get it done. So they kept giving me opportunity. They kept rewarding me. I love the mission. The mission as far as unions. I mean, we cater to the labor unions. Labor unions own us. And being able to help those to, get to that next level, get to the middle class, have great jobs. It was exciting for me, and it just kept going. And then we got a really great senior leadership team that came in. Ed Smith is my CEO. He's been there 15 years. He's just phenomenal. He's got such passion and drive. It's infectious. And, I used to joke, I would go every time he spoke, I would go listen to him because I would learn something new and I would be able to bring that back.
So you mentioned hard work and look, community college and working and coaching, and that's I mean, that's no joke, right? Your 25-year post, it had a hashtag at the bottom and it said, I have it here somewhere in my notes, but it said like hard work pays off, or working hard.
Yeah.
Has that always been, I mean, I can see the smile, right? Has that always been something that's you, or did that come along and like a lot of us, you kind of just learned that along the way?
Um, it's always been me, right? And it goes back to, gets a little personal, right? I shared earlier I was, only child, single mom, not a lot of cash. She had some challenges, mental health challenges, and I was always trying to get her approval. I was always trying to get her buy-in, and so work hard to get that. I would, and my claim to fame with my mom, if you will, was my sport, because that's what I was really good at. She was impressed by that and happy by that. Not so much my grades, because I wasn't that great. But so that, I think that's where it instilled in me very young, like, you got to work hard to get somebody's approval and somebody's satisfaction. And so it's just transcend, throughout my career, my sports career, my coaching, my career at Ullico.
Yeah. So your career at Ullico, I think it was like AVP of operations, right? And you're saying, hey, I love taking things apart and I'm putting back together. I'm running spreadsheets, all the stuff that personally I'm not. I'm like, I don't want any part. I want to go off and, for me, it's the new client, and then I kind of hand off and then, keep those relationships. But that's more on me on a sales role. But yet, I go in and see your post, and we're playing golf with clients and we're speaking with clients and we're doing that. So I guess in this role of president, and I want to get into this thing, is that more of a sales role for you, or is that more of an operations role for you?
Well, I was born and bred on operations, but when I came into this role, I had to learn sales. Like I was heading up the sales team. The sales team reported to me. I had a VP of sales at the time, and they reported to me. I talk about Ed Smith, my CEO. I'll never forget. I flew in from the West Coast. Not very soon. It was very soon before I was promoted to this position. Flew in from the West Coast on a red eye so I could brief him so he could give a speech. And I made the fatal flaw of coming in a business suit. And I briefed him. He looked at me and he's like, Stephanie, why am I doing this? You know this stuff cold. You're going to go do that speech. And I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? I don't do speeches. No, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And sure enough, he kind of put me out there. I was terrified, absolutely terrified. Did it probably, not real well, but then he just kept putting me out there. He kept making me do it. And it's gotten to the point now where I actually enjoy it. Like, I enjoy telling the Ullico story. I enjoy telling my story. It's, if it's going to help somebody, it's fun to do now. And I like being with clients. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't like the sales part of it, because I still don't like being told no. That's why I have a sales team. They're the ones who can get the no, because that hurts my self-esteem when you tell me no.
Yeah, you get in at the very end and shake hands and go to the scramble. Everybody else is kind of grinding a little bit. I get it. But I've seen you, like, that first speech when he threw you out there and said, hey, go. And that's more than just I didn't want to give it. That is, I see something in you that he saw, obviously. How many people was that in front of?
Oh, that particular one? Probably 50, 60 people.
Okay. And now you're up to what? Like, what's the largest you've done and where you're up there talking?
2,500 people.
Yeah. Okay. Right. That's awesome, by the way. That's so good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're into a sales operational role. So when you say, okay, I don't really know day to day. So if I said, all right, Steph, like, what do you do day to day? What is your day to day look like? Like, how are you balancing this?
From a work standpoint, what does my work day look like?
Yeah.
Well, I have a lot of meetings because I do one-on-ones with all of my folks once a week. I take an hour with my folks once a week.
An hour, really?
Yeah, I have 5 direct reports. I do a staff meeting that's an hour and a half every 2 weeks. I've got a senior staff meeting that I have every Thursday for 2 hours in the morning. And then peppered throughout that, there's projects going on. Like right now, we're putting in a brand new administrative system. That's a 16-month project that, there's updates going on with that.
Yeah.
Just today, I had my sales meeting with my sales guys. We did our kickoff for our 1/1 season. Our January 1 season is our biggest season, and so we did a kickoff with that. I now started blocking off half-hour increments to do touch points on projects we have, just to keep things moving because there are so many things. I travel a lot. I go to conventions. I give speeches. I go to golf outings. I'm out there a lot. So it's the days are never the same. Let's put it that way.
Do you find yourself providing that mentorship that you had at the young age? Are you at that point of your career now where you start saying, hey, wait a second, that person has something, they're working hard, and if I nudge them in the right direction, like that person nudged you, that could be something.
Yeah, I definitely do. I've given some speeches to women in labor, and I've sometimes been asked about like my words of wisdom, if you will, and there's 5 points I hit on, and that's because that's what I've learned throughout my career, and so I share that with them in the hopes that maybe they don't make some of the mistakes I made. But you know what? If they do make those mistakes, that's fine because failure is a great teacher, and so I don't mind failing now. I didn't like failing 20 years ago, but I can tell you if I fail now, that means I tried and I learned something and it'll be better the next time.
Yeah. And that sentiment, I'm guessing, is with your team as well, right? Hey, let's go try something new. Let's learn something from it. Let's not go keep taking the same mistake over and over again, because that will get old, right? But if you learn something from it, it's really good. So obviously you're leading a team now. Talent development, we talked about the mentoring piece of the puzzle. How do you look at like hiring? How do you look at promotions? How do you right? If you're only as good as the team you have underneath you, you can kind of give guidance, but if you didn't hire the right people, then that's a problem. So how do you look at hiring?
Yeah, hiring's a challenge. So organization I'm with is a very tenured organization. At one point in time in my division, the average tenure was 28 years. So, you look at that, they've been there a long time, and that's kind of some of the old guard. And there's pluses and minuses to that. It's a culture. I very much hire for culture. Obviously the expertise is important, but I've seen it way too many times over the course of my career at various levels where you bring in some hotshot person who's gonna, a VP level is gonna come in and change the world, and they end up bombing because they can't fit with the culture, because they're there to shake up everybody's snow globe versus trying to fit in and mesh in and change things. So first and foremost, I hire for culture. I hire to make sure that I make everybody kind of round robin. They do a ton of interviews. I don't care what the position is. I want you to get a feel and flavor for everybody. I encourage my interviewees. I'm like, go talk to people and ask them what they think of me, because I may think, I'm XYZ, but they may have a different opinion. So you need to know what you're getting into when you get here.
Yeah, that's interesting. So hang on a second, right? So I'm going to be one of your direct reports, or is that for like a few levels down as well?
I don't necessarily have them say to talk, I think for my direct reports, when I have them, I say, go talk to other people. And because look, when I tell them I'm not your typical executive, I like to have fun, I'm going to crack jokes, I'm going to have a potty mouth, we're going to get stuff done, we're going to have fun doing it. They're like, yeah, this is too good to be true. And, and I'm direct. I always tell them I'm direct. I'm like, go ask the question. I don't want you to take it from me. I'm not here to sell you. I want you to sell. I want the company to sell itself to you. So, and what I've gotten back from the hires that I have, and I've built this team now. This is my direct report team is my team. I built this team in the 5 years I've been in the role. Is they're like, I loved your honesty. I loved your enthusiasm. I loved your directness. And I love that you have my back. And that's just who I am as a leader, as a company. Look, we spend 8 hours plus a day with folks, right? It should not be miserable. It should be enjoyable. So I want to make sure that I can interact with you, not only on a business level, but a personal level. And if I can't connect with you that way culturally, then I'm not sure if it's going to work.
Have you ever turned people away and said, hey, on paper, you're spot on. You're saying all the right things to me. You're right there, but you know what? Is something not quite clicking?
I have. I
Yeah.
have. Yeah, for sure. I've had more experienced candidates from an experience perspective, and putting them up against somebody else, I've hired for the culture part of it, because I've seen sometimes that it can be like a cancer in your organization, and that's hard to get rid of if it's just difficult, and you spend a lot of time and effort on that. So hiring right, and look, you're going to get it wrong. It's going to happen. You're gonna hire. You're going to think, wow, this person was great, and they get in there and there's something completely different. They sold themselves a different way, and that's fine. You'll figure it out.
Yeah. The point of having the folks like you encouraging it. A lot of people, we've all seen it. Hey, ask them if you can do it. Hey, great, yeah, go. That's one thing. Encouraging them and say you will go talk. That's a whole different piece to me. And I think that says a lot. If I heard that from somebody I'm interviewing with, I go, okay, she's confident in terms of what they're going to say. So let's find out, and then you compare answers. So that to me is really nice. I like that. You talked about speaking to women out there, right, as part of the whole process. You've seen 25 years now of this change. How would you describe that? I mean, 25 years isn't a crazy amount of time, but it's a pretty decent amount of time in terms of what you could see in one industry.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you, so for my industry, you've got to remember I'm dealing with the unions, right? And I'm dealing with insurance. Those have notoriously been two male-dominated industries. And so when I came in 25 years ago, you didn't see a lot of females in the senior exec levels in those two industries. It's changed a ton, and I think there's an acceptance in the union world, especially. I mean, there's when I said I spoke to 2,500 women, I spoke to them at a tradeswomen conference. 2,500 women in a room that were there because they're in the building trades, and they were there to have kind of the girl power piece. You didn't see that 20 years ago. There weren't conventions just for them to do that. My CEO, he's progressive. We've got 3 business divisions, 3 presidents. 2 of us are women, and he puts his money where his mouth is, and he knows that we're there and we're dedicated. We get things done. You're seeing that more and more, and it's not just because we're a woman. It's not because it's a token thing to do. It's because, wow, they're there, they work hard, they can multitask, they have empathy, they get it done. And there's no reason why they shouldn't be there. So it's changed a lot, especially in my world, in the union world, in the insurance world. Do we still have a way to go? Sure, because you're always going to have somebody back there who's, oh, woman can't do it as well. Okay, well, I'll go toe to toe with you any day. And you know what? You may beat me, but you know what? I'll come back stronger. It's all right.
I can see that. So from a standpoint then of, looking back and saying, okay, here's 22-year-old Stephanie, what would you say to her?
Oh, temper your eagerness accordingly. I think a lot of folks, young folks coming up, they are very eager, and they do have a lot of great ideas, but sometimes you push too hard and you don't know how to push the right way, and you can come off being arrogant and too aggressive. I think there were periods of time where I was like that, but just to temper your eagerness, and to respect those who are more seasoned, who have walked the path, because they have a lot of wisdom and you can learn a lot from them. I don't think I always respected that. Now I have huge respect for those who walked in the shoes ahead of me. I'm not as quick to judge them, and I try to tell folks even that now. I'm like, look, you're going to think and believe you can do much better, and you might be able to, but trust me, you don't know everything that goes into this job until you're sitting in this job. So I guess just having that respect and wisdom for those that have walked the walk ahead of you.
Temper the eagerness and kind of leveraging the wisdom ahead of you. That's not bad. That's not bad. It's pretty good. All right, let's have some fun at the end. Okay. That's all serious. And you had no idea where I was going, and I appreciate your honesty, because I think you did it, right? So let's have a little bit here. Obviously, DC. How are your commanders this year? I'm still getting like the right verbiage, right?
Oh.
So how are you? I don't even know who your quarterback is, by the way. I don't even know who this is. Like, who is this?
So I have to be honest. I grew up, born and bred, a Washington Redskins fan,
Oh,
right?
no.
I had the leather jacket, jacket thing.
Yes.
I went to the Super Bowl parade when I was, in 1981 when they won and froze my tail off. Dan Snyder ruined that team for me.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you that and I'm sad to say it, and I probably need to get back on board now that we have new ownership.
I was going to say.
I have not paid attention to them because it was just, it hurt me. It was disgusting to me. And I literally just said, not too long ago, driving by FedEx Stadium, which is where we play, I'm like, I need to get back into this now. There's new leadership. So
that's, you know what? You're probably not alone. You're probably going to see a lot more of that piece come back. And that's a whole 30 minutes by itself. Right.
Yeah.
Long distance running. You still doing that down there at Disney, kind of playing that whole like craziness?
My last Disney race was 2 years ago. So I'm a big long distance runner, done like 20 some odd half marathons. Did a marathon. Have not been running as much. I have found my Peloton and I have found weight training, and I love it. Love it. So I've
weight training. So what's that, like the kettlebell? Like you throwing up the dumbbells? Like what? Like that?
I'm doing some bench pressing. I'm doing some kettlebells. I got some, plates that I use when I'm doing my sit-ups and my squats.
Plates and sit like Rocky. That's like some sort of craziness. All right, that's pretty good, by the way. Plates and sit-ups. There you go. Last question. So what's next? You've been president for 5 years. You've been here 25 years. You've done Wharton at executive coaching. You have your acronyms and your credentials, and right. And I say that like in all seriousness, like you've been a tremendous success. So now what? Yeah.
Leave it better than I found it is what I ultimately want to do. I'm not planning to leave just yet. I think I've got, hopefully at least another 10 years. So that would put me at 35. I think there's some new challenges that are there at the company. But honestly, what's next for me that I would really like to do is I'd like to do some motivational speaking, tell my story, tell my personal story, tell my corporate story. I think it can be inspirational to people because a lot of times, I look back and I think about my upbringing and who I was, and I didn't have anybody that I could turn to and go, hey, I can do that. From where I'm at, I can do that. And so I'd like to be able to do that. And I think I've gotten over my fear of speaking. So I think I could go out there and do some of that, some of the speech circuit, if you will. Who knows if anybody would listen, but that would be fun to do.
I'm willing to bet we're going to come back in a year and you're going to have a few gigs already lined up with that. So I'm not putting that by you. So, well, look, that was extremely fun. I learned a lot about that. Right. And I always say on this show, hey, I always look for about, that 30-second, 45 seconds that I can clip up and go, hey guys, if you missed it, here it is. I probably have 4 in there. There's about 4 to 5 things I can just clip up and say, hey, check this out. Right. So thank you for that. Like seriously, those aren't easy, right? In terms of, and I don't want it to be easy. I want to really get to, I know you, I think I learned, and I hope everybody else did too. So Stephanie, seriously, thank you.
No, well, thank you. I've been blessed in life. So if I can give any bit of that back, I want to do that. And this was super fun. I love this. I was tickled that you asked me to do it. And I love the podcast. I've been listening to it because I spend a lot of time on the road. So keep doing what you're doing because I think it's great. Thank you, Stephanie. And to everybody else, thank you for being here. Okay. I have about 3 more people lined up for September and we keep going. So thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.